I would say being confident in your approach is a big part of carp fishing. That's why I've come to Blasford Hill Fishery here in Essex to show you my late winter, early spring tactics. 4 fish in 48 hours proves that keeping things simple, locating fish is all you need to have a successful trip.
It will do very nicely. That's all right, that is. Come on. Happy days. So, welcome to this episode of Carp Chapters. We are at Blasford Hill Fishery in Essex. Never been here before. I've watched a few videos online, so I've got an idea of the place, but I've got 48 hours to hopefully catch a carp. It's now the 13th of March, so in theory, it's actually still winter. 20th of March is officially the first day of spring, but we have got pretty good weather. I'm not gonna lie, we've got some lovely southwesterlies that have just turned up yesterday. It's been blowing dirty old northeasterlies for the last couple of days, and I was actually thinking it's not great weather to be carp fishing, but I've got no excuses. The weather has turned, it's looking pretty good. We've got nice warm temps, so hopefully over the next couple of days I can catch a carp or two. Now, I got here fairly early. We had a 2-hour drip here. Got up at 4 o'clock and we've walked the lake several times. I've actually seen a carp in this corner where the wind is now blowing. So the rod's on the rest. There's no rigs in the water yet. I'm just getting some rigs ready. I'm gonna ping them out and hopefully we can sit here, see some more carp, but more importantly, hopefully we can catch one straight away.
So how am I going to approach Blasford over the next couple of days? Now, it is still winter, early spring, the water temps are still fairly cold, and let's face it, the carp haven't quite woken up from their winter slumber as of yet. Now, my approach is the same as my approach every winter, and that is to use pop-up rigs. Now, you've all seen it, the spinner, the Ronnie rig is a very fashionable rig at the moment, and it is for a good reason. Now, this rig just works. That combined with a little yellow high-vis pop-up, my favourite colour in the winter, with a small scattering of boilie is all I need to catch a carp. It's a very simple approach. It's just locating fish, applying the rig and the bait, and waiting, hopefully, for them carp to have a feed.
Right, okay, so let's talk about where I've actually put my rigs in this swim. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we've got this big southwesterly which is blowing right in my face, but it's a really warm wind. And I feel that this margin down to my left-hand side, where we saw the fish earlier, is a great position to put a rig. So I've put one rod down there. I haven't decided to put all rods there. I want minimal disturbance. I've got one rod just down there with a nice slack line with probably a handful of 12 millers, a nice little Ronnie, and that is all I can really do. I've not got the spawn rod out, I'm not leading up, I've just done a little underarm flick into the zone, got a nice drop, and that is all I'm going to do for that rod. Now, the 2 rods towards the island, I've got one just off the edge of the island, and I've got one just out in open water. Not far, just 4.5 wraps out, yet again, sort of in this wind. To be fair, the wind was it was a bit breezy, and I couldn't quite get the 12 millers over there. So that's a bit of a single at the moment. But happy fishing singles. Remember, it is sort of like late winter, early spring, and these sort of tactics are the ones for me. So with that, I think it's just a case of sitting here, keep an eye on the water. If I see something, I've got an option of moving, but at the time being, I'm really happy at where I am. It will do very nicely. That's all right, that is. Come on. Yeah. Happy days. Well, that is actually quite a nice fish. But what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get him quickly unhooked. I'm gonna get a fresh rig on, get it back out, and then we'll have a look at the fish, because opportunities don't come around too much. So yeah, I think get the rig back out ASAP. Ronnie's for the win. Can't beat a Ronnie. We'll go through that in a little while. Bait, rigs, everything. But first, let's get a fresh one on and get it back out.
One thing to mention, obviously when retaining fish, you must make sure that the fishery allows you to do so, but it's more important to make sure that the fish is in safe environment, not in too shallow a water, and is secure. That said, the fish can have a bit of a breather, you can get a rig back out on the spot and then deal with the fish afterwards.
Well, there we go. First blood from Blasford Hill Fishery, and I have a real cool one, a mega mirror, just over 29 pounds, nice orange chestnut colour. They are a nice colour this time of year. From the banker rod, which I said was going to be the one I thought, just down in this bay where the wind has been pushing all morning. It's currently 1 o'clock, so I guess I've been fishing for about 3 hours. Absolutely blown away. £29, Blasford Hill, mega. That way, mate. He's gonna give me a liner. Okay, so where are we on the fishing front? Well, after catching that stunning £29 mirror, not a lot to be fair. I have seen 2 fish show, but they've been in the sort of middle body of the lake. One to the left, one to the right. So there's not enough for me to want to move as of yet. But as it goes, I'm fairly happy where I am. Obviously catching a fish will do that, but being here on the end of this wind, yeah, as I mentioned, I'm fairly happy. So I think the plan of action is I'm going to leave the rod which I caught the fish on in the bay. I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to recast that. I only cast that out again sort of 3-4 hours ago, so that's going to stay put. These 2 rods though, however, I haven't really put a lot of bait out on the spot, so if I need to, I will move those spots, but only if I see a fish show closer in my swim. But as it stands, I'm just going to sit, stand, watch the water, see if any fish sort of give the game away, and we'll move and make a decision on that. But for the now, I'm going to stay in here for the night, see what happens, and if the morning changes, I see some more fish showing in other areas of the lake, I can up sticks and move. So that's the plan. Drink my tea, watch the water. Well, there we go. We was literally just talking about looking for signs of fish and moving these rods. We've just had a bite, so that has secured the fact that I'm going to stay here for the night. Got 2 different spots that are both producing fish, both on the same rig. And as I mentioned, we'll go through that probably tomorrow now, but yeah, pretty chuffed. Let's hopefully we can get this in. Show you another fish just before it gets dark. God, he's not giving up. There we go, fish number 2 from Blasford. A little common this time round. But what that does do, it makes my life a lot easier because I've got 2 spots which are producing fish. Now this rod was my middle rod, fished sort of in the mouth of the bay really, so I'm just sort of thinking ahead. I might move the island rod and put 2 out there because sort of this bay seems to be the one, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Obviously recast that rod. I'm going to move the island rod out that direction. A nice sprinkling of 12mm manila. It should do the job going through into the evening. So yeah, chuffed. Let's get him back. It's hardly worth wrapping out.
This time of year you can actually find that the fish are really active in the hours of darkness and can produce a few fish as well. And I have been told that Blasford in late winter, early spring does do quite a few night bites. So with that said, I went to sleep quite hopeful of a bite or 2.
Well, good morning. It's currently 7 o'clock. I've been up since first light, just watching the water, drinking tea, refreshed some rigs, and I have actually seen some fish, but unfortunately not in the zones I'm fishing. Yesterday I mentioned that I've seen a couple of fish show in that sort of open body of water, sort of left and right, but as it got into dark more and around midnight they started showing a bit more out there, and it did kind of make me think that I was in the sort of the wrong sort of zone for the night time. This morning I've seen a few more shows over there, not loads, but I've seen 0 where I am, and it doesn't feel as nice in this swim as it did yesterday. I mean, I know I keep banging on about that wind, but that just made it feel carpy. But now I'm off the wind and it doesn't feel as nice as it did yesterday. So my little brain is telling me that I need to have a move. And that is exactly what I think I'm going to do. So I'm going to finish my tea, have a slow pack down of the bivvy, and then I'm going to up sticks and I'm going to move directly opposite there, because I've got the option of fishing this bay if I need to still, but I've also got an option of fishing into that open body of water where all those fish were showing last night. And if they are there again tonight, then I think we'll have a chance of a night bite. So yeah, finish the tea and then we'll have a pack up and we'll have a move.
So location is, well, let's face it, the most important part of catching carp. Now, you can't catch carp if you haven't got any carp in your swim. So with that said, I moved to the swim opposite and got some rigs out pretty sharpish. Now, the first rod I decided to put out into open water where majority of the fish shows were the night before. My second rod I put into the bay, which is now to my right hand side where I caught that 29 mirror. It's in the margins, it's going to be a lovely day. Handful of bait is all I wanted to try and catch a carp from that spot. And the third rod I pinged out towards the island. Now, I haven't caught a fish from the island as of yet, but it is meant to be a hot zone, and well, let's face it, if the locals like it, it does fish, it's good enough for me.
Right, okay, so I'm going to have a bit of a change up. Now, the rod I cast into open water, I'm happy to fish there in the evening and through the night, but it's such a lovely day. I really feel like the margins have a better chance of producing a bite. So what I'm going to do is I've just put a lead on my marker rod and I'm going to have a feel around this margin here, just literally behind the camera there, and see if there's any areas that feel a little bit further than from others, and I'm going to just put a rod just in the margins. For the daytime, I really feel it's going to be a better option for catching a fish. Now, these spring, lovely sort of warm days, the fish are trying to get some warmer temps, and that means they're going to head into either up in the water column or around the edges. So I think that's the best choice, that or a zig, but it's quite dirty because they've had a lot of rain. So yeah, margins it is. So yeah, let me go and have a little feel up and see what I can find. I think there is the best. It's not too deep, it's not too shallow, and I'm getting a good firm drop on the lid. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get my single bank stick just up here and get a rod there. So as it stands, that move hasn't paid off, but I am still super confident about getting a bite. Now, it's, as I keep mentioning, the weather is absolutely prime. It's warm, it's windy, and it's sunny. Now, that's perfect conditions for this time of year. But while we have this lull, because I'm going to call it a lull, because I think I am going to catch something, we're going to talk about sort of rigs and bait approach for this time of year. Now, it's no stranger if you've watched any of my videos before, I love to use a pop-up in the winter and spring. Now, with a spinner rig, everyone's seen it, everyone's used it, but there's a good reason for that. It actually works. It resets itself, and it's a low-line pop-up, which is, in my opinion, can't really be beaten. So for me, on this venue today, I've used it with no leaders, because out in Blasford, there is a leader ban. So that's lead core, tubing. Well, I think you might be able to use tubing, but for me, I like to use lead core. So what I've decided to do is completely bush all the tubing, lead core, everything completely, and I'm fishing naked style. So I've got some line stops up the line. These are there basically for moulding putty round, because I want to still pin that section of line down onto the bottom. So 3 float stops moulded with 3 big blobs of putty. Now that comes down to the lead clip design. Now, I often fish helis, but in this case, because there's no leaders and I can't use lead core, I've gone for a lead clip. I'm fine with that. I've just got a naked tail rubber which stops any sort of tangles. That brings me down to the rig. Now, for me, I like to use a fluorocarbon boom. I believe it sort of kicks the rig out enough on the cast, eliminates pretty much 99% of tangles, and it's invisible as well. So that ticks all the boxes for me. On the end, obviously, a spinner. You've seen it all before. I like to use, with a barbless rule like we have on Blasford, I like to use a beaked point hook. Now that is for one reason. I think with a straight point, you're probably going to prick more fish, but with a beaked point, once it beaks into the mouth, it has to sort of beak out, and therefore I feel like I drop less fish. It's a confidence thing. I've always done it, and I will carry on as well. So I have gone for a quarter claw hook, size 4. It's got a sharp point and it's beaked. Now, a little bait screw and a little hook bead just makes putting on baits so easy, and that brings me down to the hook baits. Now for me, as I mentioned a minute ago, I don't like to mix things up too much. I have little yellow hook baits soaked in isotonic goo, and that is pretty much all I use in the winter. They've caught me loads of fish, and they will carry on to catch me fish, and I don't really mix things up. Now, that people like to change in pinks and whites and stuff, I think that just fogs my mind. I like yellow, and that is what I always go for when it's winter or spring. Now, with freebies and feeding the fish, winter and spring, I am also a guy that likes to use minimal bait. I know people who do catch really well on heavy baiting, but these are the people who get to probably fish a lot more than myself. They put bait in, the fish are used to it. But for me, I like to do short sessions. I don't do big, long sessions in the winter and early spring. So the minimal amount of bait works for me. I'm fishing for a bite at a time. It is simple as that. As you've seen, I'm just putting handfuls of bait in, catapulting small amounts of just 12 mil Manila active, yeah? It's highly attractive. It's just enough to get that fish into the area, and that seems to do the trick. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'm super confident. These rods are all in the spots I think that's going to do me a bite in the day. If it doesn't happen, we always have the evening, and I will move the rods further out into the middle of the lake where I saw that activity yesterday. And that is all I can do. But I'm still quietly confident that one of these rods will bust off any second.
Okay, so the afternoon soon came and went, and unfortunately no fish to report. But what that does mean is I can get the rigs and the baits sorted going into the evening. Now, fresh pop-ups were screwed on, tested in the margins and put out on said spots. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because the island rod I was happy to leave out there. Although I haven't actually caught a fish from there this session, the locals say that it's a really good area, and I was happy to leave that rod there. The other two rods though, the plan was to keep them out of the water until that sort of 11, 12 o'clock sort of time in the middle of the night. Hopefully the fish would show themselves, maybe in the middle zone, maybe in another zone. But with the swim I've picked, I've got a lot of access, a lot of water, and I was confident wherever that bulk of fish were going to show, I could get a couple of rods in the zone. That way, I'm confident that the rigs are on fish throughout the majority of the night and the early morning.
Well, it's a good morning for two reasons. Both reasons are probably upper 20 commons. I haven't weighed them, but yes, I have caught two lovely commons sort of just before first light this morning. And that just goes to prove that you don't have to change things up. Just use the rigs that you have 100% confidence in. The bait, approach, everything just works. Now, the day we got here, we had two pretty quickly. Happy days. But yesterday was a bit of a grueler. I had those rigs on spots that I would consider absolute dynamite. But that's carp fishing. It doesn't always work. But it's not the rigs, it's not the approach, it's just fishing. And carrying on with the rigs and baits obviously proves, because I've caught two lovely fish just before first light this morning. So, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to get them both out now and show you. I'm going to show you the one I caught first, because the one I caught second is an absolute perler. So without further ado, let's get that out and have a look.
Right, hopefully he will behave for me. Common number one. He's got a bit of a big old gut on him, but cool character nonetheless. I'm gonna give myself about 27, 28 possibly. Not quite as big as the mirror I had the first day, but still an absolute result. I think probably a bit of hard work paid off with these two captures, because I stayed up till gone midnight waiting for the fish to show and put two rods on where they were showing with a sprinkling of bait. Done the job. Can't complain. Banger. Let's show you the other one. I think it's a bit cooler, if I'm honest. You're going the wrong way, mate. That's it. Off you pop. Well, there you go. Fish number two, another cool plump common. I'm going to give myself about the same sort of weight, 27 pounds, something like that. I'm not too fussed on the weights, to be honest with you. It's just nice coming to cool venues like Blasford Hill and catching carp like this. I've had an absolute blinding trip. I've had 4 carp over not quite 48 hours. So yeah, I'm a happy bunny. But if you want to come and fish Blasford Hill Fishery, it's really easy. It's a go catch venue. You can use the app or go online and book your slot to come and fish Blasford Hill Fishery. I suggest you do that. It's an awesome place. Great winter water, as you've obviously seen. So yeah, that's me done for this episode of Carp Chapters. Join me soon when we go out in full spring mode, trying to catch loads more cool carp. Bye for now.